May 11th, 2003. 20 years ago yesterday, the Chicago Cubs were set to host the St. Louis Cardinals in the final game of a 3-game series. This Mother's Day game had the makings of an all-time classic, potentially reaching the heights as one of the greatest regular season games ever, until it didn't. What do I mean by that? We'll get to that later, but first, you must realize it's a miracle this game started in the first place. Even before the first pitch was thrown, did fans dub this game the Typhoon game. The forecast that day was absolutely dreadful. Game time temperature was reported in the mid-40s with on and off rain throughout the day and wind speeds in the mid-30s, one report estimating nearly 50 miles per hour. Apparently, there was a tornado outbreak in the United States in May of 2003, where specifically on May 11th did Illinois get hit with severe weather. This outbreak started a week earlier on May 3rd and had continually affected several states in the central United States ever since. The Kansas City Royals even had a game postponed on May 8th due to this outbreak. Why do I mention all of this? Because it shows that Major League Baseball was well aware of this extreme weather, had a game postponed from a nearby city, and didn't postpone this one. Granted, the Cubs and Cardinals played the previous 2 games in Chicago without issue, but the weather took a turn for the worse entering Sunday. Maybe I'm in the wrong here, but you think in the middle of a tornado outbreak, would Major League Baseball keep a close eye on what days might have extreme weather and postpone such games before fans, players, media, and others arrive at the stadium? Regardless of that, the game was set to play as scheduled. Fans in the stands held umbrellas and dressed in ponchos and heavy jackets. I could only wonder how many mothers in the stands wished they had rather stayed home. Despite the awful conditions, the umpires decided to let the 2 teams play, and so, at 2:20 p.m. local time, the Cubs took the field to play ball. A typhoon couldn't stop the madness that was to occur, for what was about to unfold over the course of this game will go down as one of the craziest games in the history of Major League Baseball. As the players were getting ready for first pitch, did the announcers Chip Caray and Steve Stone foreshadow what was to occur.
And if the pitchers can throw it like that in the dirt, they've got a good chance, Steve, of keeping it in the ballpark because the weather today is very hitter-friendly.
Matt Clement started for Chicago, and right as the game started did the wind pick up, worsening the already gloomy atmosphere. Before a single out was recorded, could we see the difficulty the camera operator had keeping a still shot. You know it's bad out when the camera behaves like that, and trust me, it'll be like this all game. Here's a nice shot that shows just how dark and gloomy it looked outside, reminder that it was roughly 2:30 in the afternoon on a spring day here. Moving on to the game itself, the Cardinals put 2 runners on base with 2 outs in the top of the first, but the Cubs starter struck out Scott Rowland to escape the inning without allowing a run. In the bottom of the first, what should have been an inning-ending double play hit by right fielder Troy O'Leary turned into a fielder's choice as he was called safe at first, despite replays showing him out. The first base umpire that made the call was Ron Kolpa. Maybe that name rings a bell. Why does this call matter? In the very next at-bat, left fielder Moises Alou took a Brett Tomko fastball and drove it 401 feet over the center field wall for a 2-run home run. With the wind blowing out towards center field, Alou took advantage and Chicago struck first. In the next at-bat, Tomko would get first baseman Hee-Seop Choi to ground out to end the inning. Cubs lead 2-0 after 1. With 1 out in the top of the second, Cardinals shortstop Edgar Renteria lined the ball into the right center field gap that probably should have been a single, but center fielder Corey Patterson slipped on the wet grass, allowing Renteria to get the second. The field was clearly not in prime condition for a baseball game, but they played on. That wet grass assisted double certainly helped St. Louis, as in the next at-bat, catcher Mike Matheny singled to drive home Renteria. Now 2-1 Cubs. After a strikeout and a single, J.D. Drew came up with 2 on and 2 outs. The wind picked up here and it was really hitting hard, given with how much the camera is shaking here. As Chip Caray said,
"Buckle your seatbelts, folks. This one might be one of those 23-22 Cubs-Phillies specials."
With the weather beginning to worsen, the 2 teams played on, and on a 1-0 count, J.D. Drew hit a soft ground ball to the right side and reached on an infield hit. Now the bases are loaded with 2 outs, and the Cardinals left fielder comes to the plate. You might have heard of this player. His name is Albert Pujols. That's right, Pujols was the Cardinals' everyday left fielder for a couple of seasons early in his career before moving permanently to first base. Hard to imagine him anywhere outside first or DH, but there he is in left, a position he played nearly 300 times from 2001 to 2003. Anyway, with Pujols at bat and the bases loaded, you can probably guess what happened.
For the most part. But they are going to hit well here. A towering fly ball, left center field and deep, and Pujols has hit a grand slam.
Pujols with his then 4th career grand slam, and the Cardinals exploded for 5 runs in the second, which included 3 consecutive 2-out hits. In the at-bat after Pujols, Jim Edmonds grounded out to end the inning. 5-2 St. Louis heading into the bottom half. It would not take long before the score changed. The very first pitch thrown in the bottom half, Corey Patterson hits a home run of his own to right center field. After allowing Renteria to reach second base on a double due to slipping on the wet grass, he redeems himself by getting a run back. Although there's something I want to show you in this at-bat. Take a look at the swing again. It wasn't even the best hit ball, as Patterson got the bat a little under it. It most likely would have been just a routine flyout, but thanks to the wind, the ball carried. We've now seen 3 home runs hit today and 8 total runs before the 3rd inning. At this point, the rain started again and got so bad, Cardinals manager Tony La Russa subbed out his right fielder J.D. Drew. Drew wasn't hurt, but he had a history of knee injuries, and La Russa didn't want him to get hurt playing in these conditions. After the home run, Brett Tomko worked around the single and finished the inning without allowing another run. 5-3 Cardinals heading to the 3rd. I mentioned a few times how shaky the center field camera was. Well, here's a shot of the camera operator. Unfortunately, the shots of the cameraman were rudely interrupted as the batter, Tino Martinez, hit a home run. The 4th of the day, and add another run to this wild game so far. At this point, everybody could tell this game was going to be something special. It was the perfect hitting conditions, and it seemed like everything hit in the air would carry an extra 30 feet. With 4 home runs so far, the Cubs and Cardinals certainly had a decent shot to hit the most home runs ever in a game at Wrigley Field. In addition to the home runs, I certainly would believe this game would break the record for most umbrellas ever seen at a baseball game. The home run by Martinez would be the only run scored by St. Louis, and they led 6-3 after 2.5. With 1 out in the bottom half, shortstop Alex Gonzalez doubled, and right fielder Troy O'Leary scorched the fastball to dead center field for a 2-run home run. Make it 11 runs scored so far by both teams, and 5 home runs overall. Forget Coors Field, a tornado outbreak is the real hitter-friendliest factor in baseball. Not even a third of the way through, and this has been a game for the ages. They wouldn't be able to tie the game though, as a groundout and a strikeout would end the 3rd inning. 6-5 Cardinals through 3. In the top of the 4th, a double, walk, then fielder's choice set up runners on the corners with 2 outs for Jim Edmonds. Matt Clement was 1 out away from the first scoreless half inning since the top of the 1st. I would like to repeat that. We're in the 4th inning and we've seen a single half inning that went scoreless. Would the Cubs be able to make this the second one of the game? Well, Edmonds hit a high pop-up in shallow left field. What normally would have been easy fly ball turned into a disaster. The wind was blowing so drastically hard, it caused left fielder Moises Alou to change his trajectory and sprint 30 feet in the opposite direction to attempt a desperation catch of the ball, which he was unable to do so. 2 runs scored in that double by Edmonds, and St. Louis now led 8-5. Just like the previous several runs, these 2 were wind assisted, albeit in a completely different manner. A routine fly ball on any regular day turns into 2 runs and more opportunities for the Cardinals, which you better believe they took advantage of. After a hit by pitch of Scott Rowland, Tino Martinez stepped up to the plate and promptly hit his 2nd home run of the game. What should have been 0 runs scored turned into 5. Again, take a look at how this ball was hit. Tino Martinez got slightly under it, and what would have been a typical fly ball in calm weather turned into a 3-run home run in a Typhoon. 5 runs in the top of the 4th, all wind assisted, and the Cardinals still weren't done with the base runners. By this point, Chicago starting pitcher Matt Clement was gassed and should have been taken out, but was left in the game. He was wild with his pitches to the next batter, Edgar Renteria, before allowing a single to him. In the next at-bat, Clement was still wild. He threw a wild pitch that allowed Renteria to advance to second. After another up and in pitch, Clement hit Mike Matheny in the back, the second batter he's hit this inning. After that pitch, Clement was finally replaced 2 batters too late. Imagine giving up 11 runs and remaining in the ballgame. What kind of manager would even do that? Oh, hi Dusty. Juan Cruz came in to relieve Clement and got the opposing pitcher Brett Tomko to ground out to short to end the inning. 5 runs come in to score, and the Cardinals now lead 11-5. Matt Clement's final line was 3 2/3 innings pitched, striking out 5 and allowing 11 earned runs. In the bottom of the 4th, Corey Patterson led off with a single, his second hit of the game. The following batter, Mark Grudzielanek, slaps a double down the left field line for his second hit of the game as well. As the wet grass brings the ball to a stop, both runners move in the scoring position with nobody out. The Cardinals might have had a 6-run lead, but it seemingly didn't matter. It wasn't a matter of if the Cubs would score, but when they would score. As Steve Stone puts it,
Dave Duncan knows that even with what looks like a huge lead in this one, the conditions dictate that no lead will be safe. It's almost like playing in Coors Field because of the wind.
After a flyout, the relief pitcher Juan Cruz comes to the plate, and as you can see, a measly 133 batting average with a single RBI in his career, as one would expect from a reliever. Despite that, Cruz swings on the first pitch and hits a fly ball to right center field. It brings in Corey Patterson on a sacrifice fly, the second RBI of his career, and yet another run scores. However, all was not well in this play. Eli Marrero, who came in as a replacement for J.D. Drew, slipped on the wet grass and hurt his ankle. As Marrero came in on the ball, he tried to hold up to let Edmonds take charge, and his right ankle folded under him as he fell to the ground. It was a seriously bad injury. Marrero laid on the grass for several minutes as Cardinals players, personnel, and the medical team all took place around him. Eli had to be lifted onto a stretcher. The Cubs' own personal doctor came out to take a look at the ankle. St. Louis's pitching coach assisted in bringing the stretcher off the field, and in total, the game was stopped for approximately 10 minutes. Marrero would end up having surgery to repair ligament damage in that ankle and missed 4 months. Anyway, it's obvious this game should not have even started. The weather was bad before the game, it was bad during the game, and there were no signs of it getting better. As seen by balls hit to the outfield, as well as the injury just now, the field was in no good playing condition. At this point, you would have think the crew chief Bruce Fleming would have suspended action due to the conditions, but nope, it continued on. On the very first pitch thrown following the injury delay, Mark Bellhorn singled in Mark Grudzielanek to make it an 11-7 game, still just in the 4th inning. The Cubs weren't done there though, as the next batter up was shortstop Alex Gonzalez.
And there's another ball, deep left field. Alex hits a rocket.
Another home run and 2 more runs added, and suddenly the lead had shrunk to only 2. 4 runs in the bottom of the 4th, and that was it for Brett Tomko. His final line was 3 2/3 innings pitched, 1 strikeout, and 9 earned runs allowed for an ERA over 25. What just happened there is incredibly rare. From 1901 through 2022, this game was just the 3rd occurrence ever of 2 pitchers from opposing teams allowing at least 9 earned runs in the same game. The other 2 instances occurred in 1937 and 1901. Nearly 70 years since the last time it happened, and it's yet to happen again since. Although we came really close to seeing it happen in 2020. If this inning wasn't crazy enough already, the Cubs weren't done yet. Steve Klein came in to relieve Tomko, and with Troy O'Leary at the plate, he hits a high pop-up into short left field. However, just like with Alou earlier, the wind played with it and the ball fell. Edgar Renteria had a chance to catch it, but couldn't get his feet planted and nearly fell over himself. Yet another weather-assisted hit, and the inning continues. Moises Alou, who homered in the first, comes to the plate as the tying run. He doesn't hit a home run, but he walks, and it brings up the 9th batter of the inning. Fortunately for the Cardinals, Hee-Seop Choi strikes out on what has to be the worst 3rd strike call I've ever seen, and the inning comes to an end. Through 4 innings of play, there have been 7 home runs and 20 combined runs. For those curious, the highest scoring game of all time has a combined 49 runs from a game in 1922, which involved the Chicago Cubs beating the Philadelphia Phillies 26-23 at Wrigley Field. The second highest scoring game was 23-22, where the Cubs lost to, you guessed it, the Phillies at Wrigley Field. This game was making a serious threat for not only to break the record for highest scoring game of all time, but the most home runs hit in a single game. The combined most home runs hit in a single game entering that day was 12, which has since been surpassed by a 13-homer game in 2019. It's also not as if this has been a one-sided clobbering. Both teams exchanged leads, and when one team scored a bunch of runs, the other team came right back. It's been exciting, thrilling, devastating, and wild all in one game. Top of the 5th inning now, and second baseman Fernando Vina leads off. 4 pitches into the at-bat, and the game ended. Bruce Fleming suspended the game, and out came the grounds crew to put the tarp on. The rain had picked up yet again at this point, and the teams couldn't play anymore. This was about 4 innings late, but at least the umpire made the right call to suspend action. Usually, the teams would wait out the rain and resume play once the weather cleared up. However, the weather didn't clear up for the rest of the day, and the game could not be resumed at all. This scenario also happens sometimes, and in this situation, the game will be postponed and picked up where it left off. That's not what happened though. This game was never finished. You see, according to Major League Baseball rules, if a game gets postponed and is unable to be made up, it can be considered official if it completed at least 5 innings. Here's the excerpt from MLB.com. A game is considered a regulation game once the visiting team has made 15 outs and the home team is leading, or the home team has made 15 outs regardless of the score. An example of this shortened official game occurred in 2017 between the New York Mets and Philadelphia Phillies. In the bottom of the 6th inning, the Mets were leading 6-3 with a runner on base and 1 out. At that very moment, it started raining hard, so the umpire suspended action and the game entered a rain delay. The delay lasted so long that both teams were unable to resume it that day, and since the game completed at least 5 innings, it ended right there in the 6th. What does this rule have to do with the Cubs-Cardinals game? Well, since this team did not complete a full 5 innings, and it was unable to be resumed that day, it was cancelled. The rules at the time dictated that any game that was suspended and not official had to be made up from the start. Since this game was cancelled, it was replayed as part of a doubleheader later that season. Anything that happened in this game would not count towards season or career totals. It's as if it never happened. There's not even a page of this game on Baseball Reference. The only box score that exists is from ESPN, and I'm 99% certain it was meant to be deleted. Thankfully, this rule has been done with, and any game that gets suspended, regardless of when it happened, will be played from the point it was suspended from. There was another Mets game, this one from April 2021, where the game was suspended after 2 outs in the top of the 1st and was continued more than 4 months later. Remember earlier I said this game was the 3rd time ever 2 opposing pitchers allowed 9 or more earned runs? Well, that never technically happened, and isn't a part of any official game stats. Either was that home run Pujols hit, as he did not homer in the makeup game, so one can argue he really has 704 career home runs. The RBIs, hits, runs, all gone. That's good news for the 2 starters that day, as despite giving up 11 and 9 earned runs apiece, they really didn't, since the game technically never happened. On May 11, 2003, the Cardinals and Cubs played one of the wildest and nuttiest regular season games of all time. There's almost zero official data on this game available online, and we only remember it now thanks to eyewitness accounts and a video recording someone thankfully saved. It's the greatest game in the history of Major League Baseball that never happened.